Hello. Thank you for watching Taxpayer Alert. My name is Al Segalla. I'll be a moderator. I'm also president of the Calaveras County Taxpayer Association, and we always have interesting people. And this is no exception. And our guest is Kathryn Gallino, who's the director of the Economic Development Organization in Calaveras County. Welcome, Kathy.
Thank you, Al. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm a 23-year resident of Valley Springs. Moved here when my son was just a little kid. Loved Valley Springs, and I felt a very strong connection to the community, being a country girl that was originally from the city, and finished my education at Sacramento State University in environmental studies and science and biology, and began work in Sacramento County, of all places. Really wanted to be here. Commuted for almost 20 years, and then recently was hired by Calaveras County. Very, very proud to serve our community where I live.
I understand that you're celebrated with the Chamber of Commerce, which has really been dynamic in the last couple of years. And so you're starting to form collaborative relationships with other entities like the Chamber?
Yeah, absolutely. My first 6 months, I've been on the job now 6 months. I started January 22nd, and I have met just the most amazing collaborative people through the Chamber, through our Visitors Bureau, as well as all the different business organizations. There's several business associations and the Rotaries. And it's been a wonderful experience to really get to know these people and introduce myself and hear their vision.
I'm a director of the our Association of Realtors in Calaveras County. Maybe we should invite you to meet our group.
I believe I am. I believe I talked to, is it Coy Knapp?
Coy Knapp.
Yes, I believe I'm going to be at your August meeting.
Cool.
So I'm excited. I'm excited because the realtors play a big role in economic development and, connecting businesses to properties and real estate.
And we're concerned about zoning and restrictions on building and things like that as well.
Land use, yes.
Now, what's the purpose of EDC? Why EDC?
So the Board of Supervisors decided last year that they wanted a county economic developer. We had in the past an economic development company, which is not a government entity. It's a nonprofit organization. They often struggle with funding and grant abilities and actually bringing in opportunities and incentives for businesses to locate here. So it was very progressive and proactive that our Board of Supervisors in 2017 decided that they were going to create this position and staff somebody full-time for the county to advocate for the county. So I saw the ad in the paper, and I was just, or actually I think it was on Indeed.com, and I was just like, wow, this is really interesting. This is really new. This is a new approach. And I applied and was just overjoyed when they offered me the position. So it offers a lot of opportunity to work not just for the business community, but to also work within my own departments, so within our own organization, through our planning department, building department, our auditor, our county council, working together as brothers and sisters for the county.
Now, as a taxpayer, I have to ask you, what's the budget?
My budget is, I think it was $163,000 and some change. Primarily, it's my salary and benefits.
Okay.
I did have a stipend for some training and travel. It's very important that I get out into the community and that I get Calaveras recognized.
I see.
When I started contacting the state agencies about grants and funding opportunities, they had no idea that Calaveras County really was on the map. You mentioned the Jumping Frog Jubilee, and they're like, oh, yeah, I kind of know where that is. But they really didn't understand that we're the heart of the Motherlode. And there's Tuolumne to our south and Amador to our north. We get kind of forgotten. So it's been a great opportunity to be able to get out and make those connections and bring Calaveras forward.
Oh, that's interesting. The how would you go about? I understand that you want to make us more prosperous, and have more high-paying jobs, and how would you go about all this?
So I started with a blank slate.
Right.
And the first thing that I have done is actually gone out to the business communities. I've met and talked to the associations, to the businesses. We're going to be doing, and when I say we, I say collaboratively we. So the chamber, the business communities, the organizations, the Realtors Association. We, as a group, I'm planning on doing a series of what are called business walks, where we're going to go to the different communities and talk to the businesses and just ask them what they like about doing business here, what's working for them. Do they have any challenges? Are they struggling? And how can we help those businesses be successful and prosper? So that'll be going on this fall. I'll be collecting that data and actually compiling that information so that will help guide the direction that we go as an economic development group collectively, because each region is very different. There's different resources, there's different transportation issues, different housing and workforce issues. So we'll be able to actually identify what those are specifically for each particular region, and then I can develop my plan. So my hope is by the end of this year, I will actually have an economic development plan and policy that we can take to move forward, and then we have something to measure against, because there's nothing to measure against at this point.
Right.
So
all you can do is use adjectives.
well, yeah.
Like more, better. One of the things that's important is the cases sometimes where the state makes mistakes, and we get overregulation or regulations that are not appropriate, and businesses fail. And sometimes developers just can't build a home because it's so outlandish what the state requires. For instance, requiring you cannot build a regular deck. You have to make it steel and concrete so it's fireproof. I mean, who's going to pay for all that? And then forcing people to put in solar even if they don't want it. There's a number of things. And the Taxpayer Association just loves what you do, because we think we can work together with the different associations, like the builders associations, and see if we can identify those regulations that really don't make sense, and see if we can communicate with the state to see if they can be modified or repealed, and thus allowing our people to be free, to be prosperous.
Exactly. And working through our electeds and our legislative bodies, our congressional folks, is really important to bring these issues forward. There has been times of overregulation where, especially for a small business, it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And they don't have the time or the resources to stay on top of when things change.
Right.
And things can change very quickly. So it's nice to be able to be that resource in the community where businesses can call. I'm free, I'm confidential, I have an open door policy, and I can help a business through a lot of those regulatory hurdles, or help them maybe look at their business a little differently and maybe change their processes so they don't fall into regulation. They can actually fall out of it legally.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, one of the things apparently is happening now is the county has hired a legislative advocate because it's impossible for a CAO to try to keep track of all the legislation that's going on and still try to do his job in managing the county.
Exactly.
And so they've hired a legislative advocate, and it looks like the legislative advocate could take some of the role of a regulatory reform where our people can be freer to earn a living or create a business or develop property.
Be successful.
Yeah. So things are, that's a good thing.
It's very exciting, yes. You're exactly right. We're very, very short-staffed. I'm a department of one, and I work to help my other departments that are also struggling as well. The administrative office that Mr. Lutz is part of has a staff of like 3 people. Or 4, and to try and run an entire county, plus stay on top of budget and legislation and all these things, it's really, really difficult. So yes, he's brought on, it's Mia O'Connell, and I think it's O'Connell, I can't remember the name of the firm, but it's O'Connell and something. But it's Mia O'Connell. She's got a very impressive background. She's got a lot of history, especially with regulations, environmental compliance, land use issues, resources, natural resources. So it's going to be a great fit for the county to help us through this time and kind of really focus on our legislative advocacy.
Well, I attend the Board of Supervisors meetings.
I know. I see you every week.
Yeah, and usually they ignore me. That's okay.
No.
But one thing I have noticed is that Tim Lutz, our county CAO, is a really wonderful man. He doesn't allow unimportant things to sidetrack him. He stays on point, and he encourages people to work together in a collaborative manner and swim in the same direction. And there was a workshop. I forgot what the name of it was, but it was the department heads and the Board of Supervisors actually were in one room, and they were learning the techniques of how to work together.
Oh, wow.
And I think it was based partly on mind spring principles, which is a psychological type thing where you learn how to think, not just to react,
Right.
so that you get results that you want to get. And anyway, he led that, and I was really impressed about it. And I've noticed a difference in the Board of Supervisors meetings. Many problems we could have, we don't have. We, of course, we have a terrible thing going on with the drug war and that sort of thing. That I don't know what principles can help there, but so having this legislative advocate just fits right in the plan that Tim's working on to try to get results.
Exactly, and help us focus our efforts.
Yeah.
Because there's so much out there, we don't have time to determine, is this important, is this not important? A lot of stuff does bubble to the top, but we want to be more, we don't want to be reactive. We want to be proactive and be in front.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult until you do your survey and to find out what your plan is going to be. But it seems like you're going in the right direction, is to first figure out where to go before you go somewhere.
Exactly. And, I have a lot of experience. I worked for Sacramento County Economic Development for almost 20 years, and I worked in the business assistant side, and then I also worked at the former McClellan Air Force Base, which was like one of the #1 NPL contaminated sites, and trying to get that property cleaned up and back into productive reuse, trying to bring back the jobs that were lost at the peak. It was very challenging. And having infrastructure, we had to put in 23 miles of sewer and new roads and lights, and the buildings weren't to code, and there was all these challenges. And I was really blessed that by the end of my tenure there, I had transferred the last 1,300 acres, which contained the airfield as well.
Wow.
And it's all privatized. It's all back in the private hands of the business developer, which is McClellan Business Park, and very, very successful, bringing back 18,000 jobs, which is pretty amazing.
That was probably on your resume when you came to the county.
Yeah, I had it on there.
Well, that's great. Doing that, of course, you picked up skills in administration and handling information and people. And
a lot of diverse concerns, and the property values around the base had become blighted and abandoned, because that military base really supported not just the military,
right,
but all the ancillary businesses around it.
Yeah.
So when the base closed, all those businesses closed, people left, homes were abandoned, and then you had blight, we had homelessness, which was an issue, and just high crime rates. And we were able to do beautification projects and get services to the community and help beautify and bring it back, and it's actually quite lovely now.
Was there funding provided for that by the federal government?
Yes, there was quite a bit. So we leveraged the property developer, which is McClellan Business Park, Larry Kelly, who also developed Stanford Ranch, which was a very nice and upscale housing development in Rockland. He ended up being the master developer, and so we made arrangements and an agreement to sell the property to him in exchange for them putting investment dollars in. So we leveraged their dollars with the federal grant dollars from the Office of Economic Adjustment and several Department of Defense agencies and organizations, EDA being another one, a huge partner, and then just leverage those dollars to bring the project forward to completion.
How was the park marketed? Was it done?
We did a nationwide bid, RFP. We had, I believe, and this was back like in 2000, I believe we had 3 that shortlisted, and ultimately we selected McClellan Business Park. And they've done a phenomenal job.
Now, how did McClellan Business Park market the individual opportunities there? Were they buildings, or were they bare ground where they built? Or
we were very resource rich. So Sacramento suffered 3 closures. They suffered McClellan Air Force Base, Mather Air Force Base, and then also the Sacramento Army Depot. We were hit extremely hard in Northern California. Many people fought to try and keep one of the bases open because we felt very disadvantaged. Unfortunately, we lost those battles. And so what happened in that process of selection, at McClellan particularly, we had quite a bit of buildings that were reusable, and we had a very good airfield that we could use for not cargo, but for private use. We also had the Coast Guard as our anchor tenant. They fly all their missions out of there for the northern part of the world. We have CAL FIRE there. That's one of their major loading bases and reload bases when there's fires. And then we started getting these anchor tenants, so that really helped to pull it forward, which is something that I'd like to do here in Calaveras. If we could get that anchor entity, we do have a lot of resources. We've got SPI, we've got Forest Service, we have some great partners, BLM, and they have projects in need for assistance, for workforce, for getting the forest back into a healthy condition while protecting the watershed. So this is a great opportunity if we could leverage the right business to help locate here, create those higher paying jobs, those technical jobs, and forest health would be a great fit. So I'd like to try and do something obviously much smaller scale than McClellan, but do something similar like that here with our resources.
I understand our Congressman McClintock is paralleling that. He wants to see the federal government actually unleash the timber industry to allow them to prosper, to take some of the yoke of or oppression of regulation off their back a little bit, so that they can grow trees and sell them.
Exactly.
So,
well, that was a misconception that I had. So I was a product of the 70s, I'll say 60s, but 70s, when at that time there wasn't good forest management practices. They would clear cut, it would devastate, it would cause erosion and just these horrible things. Well, we've come so much farther forward now. There's great management practices for forest. And the one thing, I did a field trip with the Amador Calaveras Consensus Group. Did a field trip. We went to SPI lands, BLM lands, and also Forest Service lands. And the thing that blew me away was that, wow, trees continue to grow. If they're managed properly, they're a renewable resource. Right. So it doesn't... So it just, why it didn't dawn on me before, I guess I had to really be there to see it. And it made perfect sense. And seeing the difference between a healthy forest and an unhealthy forest, of course we want everything just covered and shaded, but that's not a healthy forest, and it's dangerous. Yeah.
Also, it's terrible in water supply. You have too many trees competing with the water. You lose the groundwater, cause the trees to become weak and die. And also there's less water available to go to the springs and to the reservoirs. I used to be with the Calaveras County Chamber as a director, and I was in charge of the Government Affairs Committee. And we interviewed the industry and learned so much about what the forest really was about. Even age harvesting allows the trees to be spaced properly, and there's a science to it. And,
oh yeah, it's very specific. I mean, there's patterns and grids and what type of trees. And
yeah, and they gather the seeds from the same area, because over thousands, maybe millions of years, the trees have developed their own little personalities for where they are, and they grow better if you get the right seed, and it's just incredible. Incidentally, if you use the word even-aged harvesting, you have no negative reaction. If you use the word clear cut, it conjures up horror.
it does.
And that essentially was the essence that what occurred, seemed to be what was occurring in our county. And but we're beyond that now, and so we have some good things happening, and economic development seems like it fits in on having a better future. If we can allow our people to be free, it seems like prosperity follows freedom. It doesn't work the other way around. Prosperous people sometimes lose their freedom, but anyway. So, in the completion of your survey of the businesses, and what do you see so far evolving on what this plan could be?
Well, I think one thing that I'm seeing, besides the differences in the communities, is the concern, the worry, the stability. Things are going much better than they were, obviously, in 2008 and 2009, when things were very, very difficult and a lot of businesses closed. And when I drive through San Andreas particularly, I'm seeing beautiful things happen again. I don't know if you've noticed between the donut shop and the print shop, they've redone the whole facade and painted the building. They've got all new electrical in there. And that's kind of where we need to be, where we identify these areas where we need to get business in and attract them and make them feel safe and comfortable and know that they'll be successful. There's other areas that are pretty full. They don't really have a lot of available space. Okay, maybe they need some different things. Maybe they need some public transportation access or some ADA assistance, or maybe they're historical buildings that need some assistance. And I'm kind of looking at that as well, because the county does have some historical buildings, especially here in San Andreas. And there's resources at the state level to help fund repairs and keep those historical places, in good shape and protected. So looking at that, and then if you have a nice building that's marketable, wow, I'm going to want to put my business there, and I know it's going to be a good investment and a good place for my time.
I see. It seems like Main Street in San Andreas is probably the epitome of historical street because of the old buildings. That's where the museum is.
It is.
Yeah, and I don't think that you'd be able to turn Highway 49 into anything quite like that.
No, and working with Caltrans, so I'm engaging with them as well, obviously through our Public Works Department, and I don't want to step on toes. I just want to help, facilitate, collaborate, maybe bring some ideas to the table, maybe some other resources. But there's going to be work that's going to be done, on 49 there, just because of the crowning issue. I mean, if you've ever been in and out of any of those driveways and your car's low like mine, you're going to scrape your car. The highway really needs to be ground down back to a better elevation so that we can get in and out, as well as, ADA concerns and, making sure that everybody has access to buildings and services.
I never knew about the solution being grinding down the highway. I thought the driveways were really too steep at the driveway and something needed to be done there.
Well, it's a combination. But, typically they just put layer over layer over layer when they've surfaced.
Yeah, and then so you get a deeper...
Right.
Yeah.
So you get a deeper thing. And if they can grind that down and bring it more level to the curb and the gutter, then it makes it much easier. And
if they fill it in, you lose your drainage.
Right.
All right.
I'm not an engineer, but I kind of get the concept.
Yeah. So in looking ahead, we see completion of your survey, which you pretty well launched that already. we don't know yet what particular thing would be good or how it would be funded. One of the things that concern the taxpayers is be careful with tax money, because we'd like improvements to be privately funded if they're profitable.
Exactly.
And if they're not profitable, we taxpayers shouldn't be subsidizing it if it don't work. Why have the taxpayers do it?
But that's the whole point of economic development is like the session today when we were at Ironstone.
Yeah.
I don't create jobs. The businesses create the jobs.
Right.
What I do is try to get those businesses here, help them with all the resources so that they can be profitable, they can be successful, and they leverage their dollars into our communities and invest in our communities. Stop the leakage where people shop outside of the county. Since I started working here, I've spent $93 outside of this county because my son needed a pair of boots. I couldn't get them here. He wears a size 13 and a half, so. But I take that very seriously, that my dollars stay here, and we need to be able to have the goods and the services where people can shop locally and have the choice, for restaurants or whatever it might be. So that's something I take, that's a kind of a personal thing for me, but it's important because that's what supports the businesses. And the businesses feel good, then they reinvest in their community and they want to do more. And actually working with two businesses right now that are actually doing an expansion and wanting to expand their business and have two locations. Wow, that's great. That's great news.
Synergy, Now, Tuolumne County is going through some difficulties in its economic development. I think there was a very negative grand jury report. You're probably aware of that.
Oh, I am.
But our county is not Tuolumne County. We're different. And maybe we can learn from the problems they have so we can have solutions and don't follow the pattern that they are experiencing.
Well, the one thing with the Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority is they're a joint powers authority, which is very different than what I am or what our department is. I'm a county employee.
Right.
I have a supervisor that I report to, which is Tim Lutz, our CAO. Right. I don't have unlimited, I have zero budget for travel or for entertainment, for those types of things. There's very strict county policy on the use of public funds, and I follow those, and Rebecca Callan makes sure I follow those things. Yeah. So the grand jury report I was concerned because I was afraid, what is that going to mean for the reputation of Calaveras County?
Right.
And I actually talked to our county council because I was concerned and wanted to know, is there any exposure? Does the county of Calaveras have any exposure because of this grand jury report? And the answer was no.
Well, we've got our own grand jury.
Well, we do. We do. So
this has been so delightful, and we're just starting to scratch the surface, but we're running out of time.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that did go really fast.
Just got started. Well, anyway, I want to thank you for coming and joining us. And maybe from time to time over the year, we can have you again and find out what's happening.
I can bring back the reports.
Thank you for watching our Taxpayer Alert program. See you next time.